back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 186. All right. I feel the need to explain myself from last episode and the rant that I was on regarding how the fuck did you afford that European ass vacation. Look, throughout that rant, I was very, very clear that I am definitely coming across as a hater, as someone who may be jealous, and of course, in the root of jealousy is insecurity and all that bullshit. It's true, but I think I also want to, because I had some self-reflection afterwards, per usual, and there's been some events that has taken place since that recording. And I realized that instead of being mad at Instagram and the accounts that I follow, whether people who I know personally or people who I just know on Instagram, instead of being mad at them and being hateful of the fact that, oh, they're on yet another international trip, or being mad that a YouTuber I follow could be on an international trip and while on that international trip be able to afford a $2,000, $250 bag, I realized that all of this is just a personal problem. Like, it has nothing to, and I think I've alluded to that in the last episode, but I didn't really sit on that more. Like, I think also, yes, I think there's this agenda that social media has to make you feel like you need this and you need that, and that it does influence you, right? That is the essence of influencer culture. That's what I wanted to get into to start off this episode, because if you don't have a check within yourself, like if you're not checking yourself, if you're not disciplining yourself, if you're not reflecting upon yourself, you are going to be influenced with the agenda that is social media. And throughout social media, you're influenced, right? So you could be following any account, but let's focus on influencers, right? Particularly accounts who make a living off of selling you stuff and influencing you to buy an outfit that they're wearing and that they're posing in this photo. And they tag different stylists or like different designers and stores in which clothes that they're wearing. So that is an example of influencer culture, because you're going to look at their outfit and be like, oh my gosh, I need leather pants. Wow, no, I need strappy heels. Oh, I need that tube top too. I need it, right? And of course you don't need it, but you place this idea of, I can't be pretty or I can't be as stylish if I don't have that exact outfit. And with that is the root of influencer culture. That is how these YouTubers and Instagrammers make their living. That is how they're able to, that is how that YouTuber who I was talking about is able to be on an international trip and still afford a luxurious item. Like, that's how she's able to not be vacation poor or vacation broke. So I think all in all, that is just the root of this society that we live in. We are constantly bombarded with advertisement and, after advertisement. And there is this push to always spend your money. There is always going to be a lack of desire to, let me put money aside and save, right? Let me do this and save, or let me invest here, or let me learn how to manage my money better. And instead of thinking like that, you're influenced greatly to spend your money. I'm going to spend my money on the next item that I see advertised here. Oh, I need that tube top. Oh, I need that dress. I need those heels. Oh my gosh, those boots are so in style. So anyway, I say all that to say that when you're not, like for me, when I'm not checking in with myself and recognizing, oh, no, I'm being influenced right now, then I'm going to be victimized by this culture. Now, it doesn't mean like, and I think my attitude was going against a lot of these influencers and being mad at them. Like, look at you being a part of the problem, right? Look at you trying to make me broke. It's like, it's just, I think it's pretty silly to think like that, actually, really thinking about it. And I feel like instead of thinking like that, instead of pushing the blame on them, and sure, maybe there's a level of accountability that they could have. Like maybe there are influencers that are more of a minimalistic approach. Maybe there are influencers that are more of a Christian approach, right? Maybe they influence you to worship God more while they wear this nice YSL lipstick. Whatever the case is, I think the point is you cannot, like for me, like I cannot let other people dictate how I should live my life and what I should wear and what I should do with my money, And, just naturally, we're all going to be influenced, right? Like it's okay to be influenced to an extent. I feel like I have a list in my phone in the notes app of items that I plan to purchase at some point or another in the future. And these items range from bathing suits to cameras to a bike that I've been meaning to get, and like all of these items that I plan to purchase. And I just have this list, this running list on my notes app. There's a running list. And with this list, it may feel overwhelming. It may feel like, oh, I need to get all of these items right now. When it's like, no, like I could budget out, right? I could determine what is a priority right now, or hey, what do I really want? Yeah, what is a priority? What do I really want to get into for the next couple of weeks? And what is an item from this list that could get me into whatever it is I want to get into, right? If I want to really bike ride for the next upcoming weeks, depending on the weather that's taking place here in Houston, then I should really look into purchasing this bike that I've been looking at for the past couple of months. So I just say all that to say, I think the attitude that I was having is just a reflection of maybe me not recognizing my own, just me not having enough time reflecting and being disciplined. And I think also, like, I was having this like victim mindset of like, oh, I can't ever, I won't ever experience that, right? I won't ever experience what it's like to be in Europe or in Greece and all these places. Like, I was doing a lot of woe is me. And here, like you guys know, especially OG listeners, you guys know throughout this podcast, the genesis of this podcast is me being just completely transparent about any and everything that I choose to share at the very least. But it's sharing the ugly, and it's sharing the vulnerability, and it's sharing the insecurity, and then it's sharing the triumphs, it's sharing the growth, it's sharing the maturity. Like it's sharing all facets of Maxine. And I think that's really what I try to portray as much as possible. So ultimately, the question still remains, how the fuck do y'all afford that? No, but I do think though, again with social media, and that's also, again, it goes back to me. It all goes back to me because I have to sit back and realize, okay, there are accounts online and there are people online who purposely demonstrate a particular type of lifestyle, who purposely demonstrate a particular perception. And they're not going to be gritty and honest and say, hey, the reason why I'm able to afford going to Europe twice a year is I have a sugar daddy that I suck his dick for the next, 3 weeks, and he funds my vacation plans. Like, and that's no shot to anyone, but the point is, like, there are people who are able to afford these excursions because they do things that I'm not interested in doing. At the very least, I'm not interested in just getting into that lifestyle. Yet they're not going to share that on Instagram, right? They're not saying, hey, I'm doing this because I'm really sucking this 65-year-old man's dick, and he's super ugly and unattractive, but he has money and he's willing to spend it on me. Like, what? We don't hear that. But instead, we see the flights, we see the fancy hotel, we see the lock, that lock gate that's in Paris that people go to all the time, and they put a lock, and it's like this like love thing or whatever. But anyway, we see all the highlights. We see the highlights, and we don't see, how did you get here? Like, a lot of people don't recognize. A lot of people don't share the how did you get here part. They just show, oh, we're here, right? We've arrived. We've reached our destination. They just show that. But they don't show how did you get here. They don't show the process. They don't show that, hey, I'm sucking dick for the 3rd time this week, and he's going to Venmo me $500, and with that money, I'm going to use towards my trip. We don't see that. So I think in those moments when I'm feeling, how did you afford that? I have to recognize that some people are able to afford these excursions because they're doing something strange for a little bit of change. And no, it's not everyone. Of course, there are people who, are very moral or whatever. No judgment, maybe judgment, but whatever. I just think ultimately there are people who, yes, sure, they budget out their money, they plan in advance, but it's like, we don't see that, right? Like, I just want people to be honest and share stuff with me, because knowledge is power. And when I'm aware of how did you get here, and you got there because of just a humble way of doing so, right? A way that I am interested in doing. Like, I'm not interested in sucking dick to get, change to afford this opportunity. I'm not interested in that, but I am interested in, how did you manage your money in a way that afforded you this trip, right? I'm interested in that. So I think what would be nice is if people were just fucking honest. Like, I think what would be nice is if people have Q&A and just shared, hey, I set aside $300 every week, or, I set aside $600 every month until this date. That's a good idea, actually. I think I'm going to think about it like that, just for myself. I just thought of that just now. Like, but it's nice when people share. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I just hate people who just hoard information. Like, we are living in this world. I know we like to be introverted. I know we like to say, I'm solo dolo, I'm a loner lifestyle. And look, I say that sometimes too. I get that. But we fucking have neighbors, right? I'm not in the woods. I'm not in the forest, right? I'm not in a desert. I don't have neighbors like 50 miles away from me. No. Literally next door, upstairs, to my left, to my right, downstairs are neighbors. Okay? I find it so funny every time I step out of my apartment and like the elevator's like a door away from my apartment. And whenever I see someone standing for the elevator and I get to the elevator, I'm the type of person, like, I'm going to make eye contact with you. Like, you could be white, black, whatever. Like, I'm going to at least acknowledge your presence at the very least. Like, I may not even say hello, but I'll make eye contact and I'll say hello with my eyes and I'll read the room, right? Maybe we could spark up conversation, and it's like, oh, I love your dog. Your dog is so cute, something like that. But I notice that oftentimes you have people just so, I don't know if it's afraid, right? I don't know if it's fear related at all, but it's just you have people so quick to not look at you. Like, hello, the fuck? We both black. This is black woman. I don't know if she's a girlfriend of someone or she's a resident here, because she'll go to the garage and she'll go to a particular floor that is reserved for guests. So I'm assuming that she's a guest and she's just a significant other of someone who already lives here. Maybe that African guy who lives around. I haven't seen him in a minute. It may be. Oh, interesting. I remember there was this incident and I didn't open my door, but I looked through the peephole, and one of my neighbors, I think I have 2 African neighbors, but no, I think it's just one. Yeah. And anyway, so it was late at night. Well, late enough for me. I think it was like midnight. And I hear 2 voices. This African man. How do you know who's African? I fucking know. It's not no racist shit. It's not. I fucking know. There's an accent. Okay. And I've seen him before. And I could easily attach, oh, that's the guy. Anyway, so I didn't open my door, but I looked through the peephole trying to catch a look, but I didn't really see much, but I heard a lot. And what happened? A woman, she's like, somebody help me. Oh my gosh, you fucking asshole. You where's my shoes? Where's my shoes? First they were arguing about her shoes. I think he took her shoes, hid her shoes purposely. Something happened. And so she's mad over that. She's ready to leave, but her shoes aren't, like she doesn't have her shoes. And so she says, this man's trying to rape me. This man's trying to rape me. And I'm like, ma'am, that's not what happened. That's not what I heard earlier. You're mad about some shoes. Now, look, I don't know what happened necessarily. I don't know what took place in that apartment. But why did I bring that up? I brought that up because neighbors are everywhere. And as quick as we are to eavesdrop and be nosy and be in the business of other people, we should be just as interested in helping others, even a neighbor, even someone off the streets, as much as you can. And at the very least, when we hoard information, it's just mind-boggling to me how one would think that's acceptable. You know, that bitch never fucking responded to my yeah, I'm calling her a bitch now, because it's like, at this point, you fucking with me. I'm talking about the girl I was talking about, a former colleague of mine who left teaching a couple of months ago, and I recently responded to a post that she shared, and congratulating her because she was sharing a celebratory post, and I just took it upon myself to send her a DM, letting her know that, hey, I too have left teaching, and I'm in the process of applying to other jobs, and wanting to know, hey, how was your transition? Basically just asking her some insight on her journey. Just share with me your journey. I'm not asking you for a contact. I'm not asking you to get me a job. I really don't even I don't ask people for favors. I don't. And it's just so strange to me how she never fucking responded, and she saw it. She saw my message. Fuck that bitch. But fat ass bitch. Yeah, you know what? Whatever. But still I rise. Still I rise. I'm feeling really good, actually. I am Oh, I want to talk about something before I get into this part. So, okay, so after influencer culture, yada, 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 maladaptive dreaming. Now, one may think, what is that? I'm going to give you a specific, direct definition of maladaptive. It's called maladaptive daydreaming specifically. So, it's basically excessive daydreaming. And it's when an individual experiences so much daydreaming that it interferes with their daily life. It is proposed as a diagnosis of a disordered form of dissociative absorption associated with excessive fantasy that is not recognized by any major medical or psychological criteria. Maladaptive daydreaming can result in distress, can replace human interaction, and may interfere with normal functioning such as social life or work. Maladaptive daydreaming is not a widely recognized diagnosis and is not found in any major diagnostic manual of psychiatry or medicine, because I guess it's fairly new or fairly coined. This is something that has been happening, very, very much a time ago. But I think this is so interesting because I relate it to influencer culture and social media, and how sometimes when we're, and I'm including myself into this, when we're mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, sometimes I will find myself just scrolling. I'll click a tag of a person who I saw on someone else who I follow on my Instagram, and I will click that tag of that person, and then look through her photos, look through her videos, and look through her images, and look through her stories, and I would find myself somewhat entrenched. Is it entrenched or entrenched? Just very much indulged in her world, or this idea that she has created online of what her world is. And every time, I'll take a moment. Oh, excuse me. Every time I will take a moment to, let me go to use the bathroom, right? Or let me, cook some food, or I'm going to put my foot down for a second. I realized, wow, for the last, let's say 20 minutes, I was in a trance. And I was just so engulfed in this random person's world that they've created online of what their world looks like, and their work could be completely opposite of what they portray online, right? That's often sometimes the case, at least. But this is what is so dangerous, because you have some people who struggle with maladaptive daydreaming, who are excessively daydreaming because they've created a refuge in their mind, and they create these fantasies, and they create these characters. And although one may describe that, you're just being creative, and you could use that as an outlet to write a book, to write a movie, a movie script, a TV show script, whatever. But sometimes people are not doing that, right? People are not taking that opportunity to use that productively. Instead, they're taking this condition as a way to completely detach themselves from the real world. And they lose friendships, they lose relationships, they lose work opportunities, their social life is completely depleted because of this. And I think, when you have, and look, social media is a tool, right? You could absolutely use it for good. And then you could absolutely use it for danger. You could absolutely not be mindful of how you're being used by social media, and being victimized by it. And I think people who struggle with maladaptive daydreaming is oftentimes because I remember being younger and I was very much in my head. Like I created characters in my mind. I remember this character. I still remember her to this day. I literally conjured her up in my mind. Like she lived in my mind. She doesn't live in my mind anymore. I just remember her. But it was this like Mariah Carey type of character. Like she favored Mariah Carey. I thought of her, or I created her as this like struggling singer, a struggling singer, and she finally caught a hit. And she got nominated for a Grammy and won that Grammy. And I remember a particular scene that I've created in my head when I was younger. I was probably like 11, 12, around that age, of this woman. And she had this like curly blonde hair, biracial, like similar to Mariah Carey, but her features were more black. But yeah, she was still super, super light skinned. Her hair was still of a lighter texture and of a curlier texture or whatever. And it was blonde. It was a blonde brown color, and it was like to her back, and it was like curly texture. Yeah, and I'm just remembering right now. And then I created her to. She was at the Grammys. She won a Grammy. This character won a Grammy that I created. I forget if I probably did name her, but I don't remember the name. But this character won a Grammy, and she wore this, or I made her wear. I made her wear this red, long sequence dress. And there's a strap that's a spaghetti strap on one side, and the other side is like a thicker strap, but it could go down her shoulder. So it's not on her shoulder, but it's like down, right? And so I created her, and she's like so humble and so grateful for this Grammy, and she worked so hard for it. Anyway, I bring that up to say I maladapted daydreamed a lot. I did that a lot when I was younger. I used to draw a lot when I was younger. I used to draw a lot when I was younger, and I would draw these pageants. I would create these like pageants of like a pageant show. And I would have like 10 women. I would draw 10 different style of women, and each of them, and I would draw like series of them. So, oh my gosh, that was like a really fun time that I would do. I was so creative when I was younger, and I'm creative now, but I just, when you're a kid and you're creative, there's no fear of being judged. You just kind of do it. Anyway, I remember drawing these series of women in this pageant, and one paper I would draw of them, they're wearing the ball gown, right? Formal wear, with TV pageants, because I used to watch them a lot when I was younger with my mom. And, there's one round of formal wear, and you'll see the pageant girls wearing their formal wear, and then the next round will be swimwear, and then you'll see the pageant girls wearing their swimwear. So I would literally draw my own adaptation of that, and I would draw it in series, and I would go to each family member in my home and ask them which one is the prettiest, which one is the most stylish, and they'll vote for whomever, and then I'll determine the final winner. And then I drew the last round of who was crowned as the Miss Pageant of Boston, Massachusetts, or whatever. And oh my gosh, I used to draw so much when I was younger. But all that really was an escape. It really was. There was like a lot of things going on in my home when I was younger. And in retrospect, I'm looking at it now, I realized that I did things to escape from reality. So drawing was my way of creating my own reality. I created a reality of these pageant girls. And honestly, I think the woman who I created in my mind, in my maladaptive daydreaming, I think she was one of the women who I drew on paper. And I just formed her in my mind and made her walk and move and talk and have a personality. Like, I did all of that. It's so funny to say this out loud because it sounds kind of creepy. But seriously, that's what I did when I was younger. But yeah, that was my way of escaping. And I think I don't know, I think about like often, I think when people are maladaptive daydreaming, it's really just a sign of maybe it's help, right? Maybe it's a sign of help. But I don't know. It's a myriad of things. It could be a sign of help. It could be, I'm bored, right? Or I don't know how to exert this energy into something productive, right? So maybe if someone who is maladaptive daydreaming and is struggling with that, they could learn how to put that into a book, like write a story, just do something that can help you take whatever in your mind and put it on something, put it on paper, maybe put it in music, put it in acting, put it somewhere so that you cannot be victimized by your mind. Because sometimes with our mind, there's different areas in our mind that we just haven't controlled yet, and we're victimized by that, right? We're not trained enough to know how to control our thoughts. So of course we're going to feel like whatever our mind says to do, we do. And unfortunately, you have some people who struggle with suicide and suicidal ideations. And unfortunately, if you are exposed to maybe just one image of someone hanging, right? Maybe you saw a crazy ass video on the internet one day and that stuck with you. Now, next thing you know, your mind is going to recreate that and say, I wonder how that felt, or I wonder how it feels to wrap something around my neck. And then, if you're already struggling with depression and just angst and strong anxiety, that is something that is just dangerous, right? So I think, knowledge, again, if you're not hoarding information, if you're sharing your process with people, if you're looking at your neighbor, giving them eye contact at the very fucking least. Like, how I walk out of my elevator or walk out my apartment door and you right from the elevator, you don't even look up. Like, what is in your phone that you're so in? What? People drive me nuts sometimes. Like, I remember in college, shout out to my college roommate. Every time we were on campus, we lived on campus, but like I remember like outside of our apartment, because we always lived for me at least. Yeah, for me, because every year of my college years, undergraduate years, I lived in an apartment. It was like a college apartment. So I never experienced dorm life. I don't even know what that's like. That's beneath me. No, but deadass, I never lived in an apartment. It just worked out that way. I just never lived in an apartment. And shout out to God. But seriously, anyway, so outside of our apartment, I remember like, say if I'm like catching her at the Quad or some other campus spot, like that's on campus, that's on the central campus, I will always see her on her phone. Like, she'll always be looking down. She'll look down while looking at her phone while crossing the street, while getting up and getting into the shuttle. Like, she was always looking down. Looking back on it, I realized that she struggled with anxiety though, and depression. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But I just remember in that moment, I didn't have that language back then, and I didn't know what anxiety was. Like, that wasn't a word that was exposed to me at all when I was younger. Like literally just a couple years ago it was. So that's interesting. But I just remember she was always on her phone. She will always be looking down. And I'm just wondering, like, what the fuck is she looking at? Like, what is going on? Like, look up, make eye contact. So it just makes sense now. So thinking back to that neighbor who I see in front of the elevator sometimes when I walk out of my apartment and go to the elevator, she is always looking at her phone. So maybe she struggles with anxiety and depression. But whatever. Maladaptive daydreaming. I think the recipe or the remedy actually for that is to just get a job, right? Like I'm gonna I'm so bitch. No, I think the recipe for that, the remedy, why am I gonna say recipe? Maybe I'm hungry. I think I am. But I think the remedy for that is to get something going for yourself, right? And when I say get a job, I know that sounds flippantly. I know that sounds flippant, but I think what I'm just trying to say is get something to distract yourself, right? And I think, oftentimes with a job, you're distracted or, depending on what the job is. But get something to do, right? Get a hobby that you're really interested in. Maybe you like painting when you was younger. Go ahead and pick that back up. Maybe you want to get into the music industry or, I don't know, but like whatever it is that you are not doing because you're so fixated in your daydreaming, figure out what is a hobby of yours that you could spend more time doing. And then ultimately, those characters that you created in your mind, they go away. Like, I haven't thought about that woman who I was telling y'all about, who I created in my mind. I haven't thought about her until now, until I just brought her up just for this moment. Now, I hope she doesn't come back in. I hope she doesn't come back into my life at this point. Like, girl, this was Maxine at 11. Like, let's not. I'm 31. I do not want to deal with this maladaptive daydreaming shit. But, I think this is something that I think a lot of young people probably deal with. There's other woman who let me see if I can find her on Instagram. This is Haitian girl. She's actually a Haitian influencer. No, I'm not talking about Juju. What's her name? That other one with the crazy ass makeup. I can't remember her name, but I remember when I was following her. Why did I stop following her? I think I just got annoyed with her content. But her face is literally appearing in my mind right now, but I can't remember her name. But anyway, she revealed, which I actually really appreciate, because again, I appreciate transparency. Tell us about your journey. Don't just tell me how you fucking got there, right? How did you afford that trip? But anyway, so she shared that she struggles with maladaptive daydreaming, and she was seeing her therapist, and they came to the conclusion that she has this thing called maladaptive daydreaming. And that was the first time I heard about this term. So I looked into it and learned about it ever since that point. So I was very fascinated by that, and just her being this Haitian girl, and she really struggled with it. Like she noticed that it interfered with her relationships. It interfered, like her parents will call, or she was describing one time her mom calling her out one time because she would spend more time sleeping or more time laying in bed. And that's the thing with maladaptive daydreaming. You're gonna spend more time in bed, right? Because you want to spend more time in your mind. You want to spend more time in your thoughts. So either you're going to be sleeping more, or you're going to just be laying down in a daze or in a trance, really. And so she was doing that a lot, and she finally got called out for it, or she got called out for enough times for her to finally get checked out. And that's what they determined that she had. I don't know what she did to treat it, actually. Oh my gosh, I forgot her name. And I remember reaching out to her, and she responded. We had a brief conversation on Instagram. That was a really interesting conversation. But yeah, she was transparent and she shared her experience. And I want to say she got a prescription for it, which let's get into that. So, okay, you guys know I've been struggling with anxiety for, I feel like it's been heavier lately or not. I don't know, but I think it's just been in my face more than I wanted it to or than I've experienced before. I think sometimes naturally with anxiety, like if things are not structured or in control or in place, of course you're going to feel more anxious and you're going to feel more just out of whack, right? And considering that I decided to make a big career move and leave the practice of teaching and not necessarily have a backup secure job in line, of course, naturally, like anxiety will kind of rival or resurface its way up. But, so the past few weeks, I shared with you guys some health concerns and me feeling like I was having a panic attack to the point where I went to the emergency room and all of these things. I don't even look forward to that bill eventually coming into the mail. Like, what the fuck y'all charging me? I feel like ER shouldn't charge, right? Like, I feel like if I had to come to you in the process of an ER, why are you stressing me out with a charge, with a cost? Anyway, so why did I bring that up? So anyway, yeah, so yada yada yada, right? So yeah, so I was struggling with that, and I was thinking about like there's anxiety around money and making sure that's secure and making sure I have enough of this. Oh my gosh, what if I don't have enough of that? What if I don't have enough of that? And I was just like getting into these chokeholds within myself. And yet it's funny because though I feel like I've been dealing with anxiety a little bit more than regular, I've still been experiencing more calmness than regular. Like I'm not necessarily like in a frenzy. Like I'm not singing in a corner, rocking myself. Like I'm not doing that. It's just there are slight moments when I'm frazzled. But for the most part, I've been doing better and just doing really well at feeding into my hope, my faith, and all of that. Yada, yada, yada. So I realized that I've been looking at other opportunities to relieve my anxiety, such as I'm going to go on YouTube and find people who struggle with money anxiety or this anxiety or that anxiety and then watch how they do it, right? I'm going to do some breath work, which is cool. And that, that helps. Okay, cool. When my heart was palpitating a lot though, it didn't like necessarily stop it. I think it's like more of a mental thing with breath work. But anyway, so I was doing breath work. I would listen to like this meditation type of music to help me kind of just calm my thoughts. What else would I do? This is a YouTuber I watch I really appreciate her channel. She is very transparent and very open about her anxiety, and her anxiety is really rooted in money. And she grew up in a home in which they were very much of a lack mindset, of a scarcity mindset. I don't have enough. I'm never going to have enough. Oh my gosh, I'm broke. Right? So she grew up with that mindset very much so, and it bled into her adulthood. And with that, she feels always this intensity around money, especially since she's an entrepreneur. She's a freelancer. She does contract work. She does YouTube, of course. And although she has been supporting herself, and yeah, so she supports herself. She's a single, she's in a relationship with someone, but they don't live together. She's unmarried. Let me just say that. She's unmarried. She has a dog. She lives on her own. And she lives in fucking Canada, communist Canada. So that's already enough, right? But I think she's more of a liberal, so she probably don't see it as communist. But she lives in communist Canada. Anyway, so she is very, very open about her money anxieties, and she would like cry on her YouTube videos. Some YouTube videos of hers that I've watched, she's cried in, and she would say how she spent too much this month, and it's not even too much. Like she will feel so guilty with spending any money, right? And it's like, you have to spend money, right? Like you have to spend money, right? In this world that we live in, like nothing is free, right? You have to spend money to eat. You have to spend money to clothe yourself, right? Sometimes we change our clothes, and we have to, because maybe what we have isn't fitting our body, or it's not befitting to this event, and we have to upgrade. And like all of these things are things that we have to do in order to be a full-fledged adult in this world. And there's this guilt that she has around that, or even if she spent a little bit extra that month because she was in attendance of her friend's wedding, and she spent a little bit more to celebrate that moment, and she felt so guilty afterwards when she was looking back on her finances. And it's like, dang, I hate that she feels guilty, right? Like I hate that she struggles with this guilt and this anxiety around money, when it's like she had to spend that money, or it's okay that she spent that money to celebrate her friend. And it all comes back to her lack mindset. And so she's very aware of that, and she says she goes to therapy, and she does meditation, and she breathes in and out, and she drinks her water, and she exercises, and she does all these things. And it's like, these are the things I do too, right? I work out, I go outside, and they help, but I realized they don't last. And I know this may ruffle some people's feathers, and I'm here to ruffle them up, bitch. I'm going back to what I know. What do you mean by that, Maxine? I mean, I'm going back to my faith. I'm going back to God. I'm going back to the church. I'm going back to the Bible. I'm going back to the standing rock. I'm going back to the foundation. I'm going back to that, because through experience, I've tried everything else, right? I've tried, even for a period of time, and I talked about this in episodes ago. I think it was last year's Podmas, not the one that just passed, the one before that, the first year of Podmas. I was very open about how New Age religion is really here to fuck you up. Like, it's really here to distract you and destroy you and make you further away from God. And I think since my return, I'm just now getting really back into my faith and into praying and into inviting God in. But just in the brief early time of that, I've seen so much of a difference. And what I mean by that is, I think with anxiety and like confidence and doubts, we tend to think that we are in control. And I know this is such of a hard rhetoric to accept, but we have little control. We really do. And what I mean by that is, our emotions are fluctuating. Our feelings are fleeting. And one day we may have just the wow, we have so much motivation today, and we have the drive today, and wow, we're gonna go after it. Oh, you the baddest bitch, right? You look in the mirror, you love what you see. And then the next day you feel totally different. You feel totally, completely opposite of that. And it's a struggle to get out of bed. It's a struggle to even look yourself in the mirror. It's a struggle to get to work that day. And I say this because we like to think that, oh, if we just change our thoughts, like if we just do it ourselves, if we just, right? This is woman who I don't follow her actually. No, I came across her Instagram just a couple of days ago. And she was, she claims herself to be like the confidence queen, right? And like, you have the right to like change your narrative, and if you think this way, then it's gonna be this way. And look, I get that to a degree, but I think the problem with her rhetoric is that, I think the problem with her rhetoric is that she puts it like, that type of speech, you put it upon yourself. You think that you have control, but you don't. And instead of giving that to God, we leave that burden on our backs, and we wear that burden, and that burden weighs us down. And that burden, and then we think we got it, right? And we have a temporary fix of, oh, I did yoga, right? Oh, I'm good. Or, oh, I meditated. Oh, I'm good. Oh, I took a walk outside. And look, outside, I think all those things are helpful, but they're temporary. And when your faith is not rooted, like if your faith is only, if you don't have faith, right? Like if you don't have that structure, if you don't have that belief in God, if you don't have that knowing in God, right? If you don't have that knowing in him that, oh, he's my provider, he will protect me, he is nothing, he's not a liar, he's a man of his word, right? Like if you don't have that knowing within yourself, you're going to feel everything is all on you. You're going to feel like things are falling apart. And, if you add on, if you're not someone who's privileged, if you don't come from a privileged background, and you getting out the mud, type of thing, then it feels even more of an angst. But when you leave that to God, there's this relief that comes upon you. There's this energy that comes upon you, and you're like, okay, I do what I can. I let go of the control. I surrender it all to God, and I let him do him. And then your anxiety is relieved. There's this verse that's from 1 Peter 5 verse 7. It says, give all your worries, and different versions say cast your anxieties. So it depends on what version you're reading, but it says, give all your worries and cares to God, for he cares about you. And what's so great about this verse is that when you add more of God, there's less of whatever it is that you're struggling with. So when there's more of God in your life, there's less opportunity, there's less time for you to be anxious. When you add more worship and more prayer time into your world, into your daily living, there's less of an opportunity to be anxious and to be worried and to be fearful of what's to come, or the unknown and the lack of control, and all. Like there's focus on him. And I know there are some people online who may say something similar, but they leave God out of it, right? So there's some rhetoric out there that will say, focus on the positive, don't focus on the negative. And I think those things they're helpful. Again, I think they're helpful, but they're not anchored in something strong, right? Because you could go about your day and write down lists of what you're grateful for, a gratitude list. And that's helpful and all, but how do I say this? But it's I think sometimes people may forget the intangible, right? Like they may be grateful for the physical the material, stuff like that. But the intangible is also something to be grateful for. And God forbid you're in a position where the tangible is gone, right? So now you lose track of what you're grateful for. So what I'm saying, I say that because if you're putting your gratitude and your faith on things that you have, then again, that's not rooted in something that's strong and foundational like God. Ooh, I'm having, I don't know, it's allergies, like what's going on? Anyway, I say all that to say, build a relationship with God. I don't know. I think, and I'm tired of I feel like I have this insecurity around sharing why I think God is necessary to y'all. I don't know. It's weird because literally this podcast is God built this. But I remember the earlier year, a few years ago when I was my first or second year here in Houston, and I would talk to people about my podcast, I always felt the need to be like, oh no, but it's not a religious podcast. It's not it's not. Okay, Trump. No, but I always felt the need to kind of give a disclaimer and make them forget that God is in the title. And I'm still kind of working on my pitch of what is your podcast about? What is it? It's just fucking listen. I don't just fucking listen. It's about any and everything, right? But lately I've been saying it's about basically having an opinion and owning that and being rooted in who God. I haven't been saying God, but I'm just saying having an opinion and rooting in that. But I don't know if I like that that pitch. What the fuck? What does that mean? But anyway, I just say that because it's I talk about any and everything, right? But okay, so anyway, I'm going to make an attempt to not give a disclaimer and not feel like I have to apologize for talking about God on a podcast that's literally called God Built This. What? So yeah, anyway, I've been going back to God. I've been leaving it to him. I've been praying more. That's been really great. I've been praying more. What else? I went to a church service in person. I haven't done that in years. No, it's been a really long time, since the pandemic. And when the pandemic dwindled down, I was not interested in still going to church because I noticed the church that I've gone to previously here, it seemed like they had this message of wear a mask, still come here and wear a mask. And it's fuck y'all. I'm not wearing no fucking mask. I'm not wearing a mask to church. So that also discouraged me from going. And then the comments that the ignorant ass comments that he made about Haiti just also discouraged me from going to that church. Anyway, so I decided to find a Haitian church to go to because so a couple of days ago, I had to get a new car battery. And when I entered that AutoZone, I went to AutoZone, I entered the store, I spoke to the person who works there, an employee, and it's this black man, African. Of course he's African. These fucking Africans are everywhere. These fucking Africans are everywhere. No, but definitely African. I don't remember his name. Peter. I don't fucking know. Who cares? But I approached him and I said, "Hi, how are you? I'm doing good. How are you?" Right? Oh, well, he asked me, "Hi, how am I?" And I answered and I asked him the same. I told him about my car and said that I may need to get a new car battery. And I was told that AutoZone is a great place for me to go because you guys will be able to check that out for me. And, you know, I was doing the whole spiel, right? And the way that I talk, if you guys haven't noticed, I'm very kind. Okay, I'm very kind. I make you feel comfortable. Like I don't know. It's God built this, right? Like literally, I recognize, you know, this has been like a couple of years ago. I finally recognized that I do have a way of making people feel comfortable and like happy with me. Like like I can make you happy with me. Until you're not happy with me because I did something or, you know, something happened. I don't know. But like for the most part, like I make you feel good, right? I make you feel comfortable with me. I make you feel at peace. I like niggas say that all the time about me. You make me happy. It's like, okay. And I don't even be doing it. I'm just present with you, you know, for the most part at least, right? Anyway, so I'm present with this guy. I'm like telling him about my car battery. And the first thing he says to me in response is, "What church do you go to?" And I'm like, oh, nigga, what the fuck are we? Can you just check my car battery? That's me in my head, of course. But I didn't know how to answer him because I haven't been to a church in so long. And I felt uncomfortable with that question because of that reality. Like, damn, I haven't been to a church in so long. Like, I don't have a church home here. I don't have a church. But I flippantly said, oh, well, first I was like, we don't go to the same church. I said it like that. That was the first thing I said. He's like, oh, he doesn't go to church. I'm like, oh, okay. Obviously you don't go to church, right? African. I'm kidding. Damn. I may come across as a racist towards Africans. It's a joke. Fuck. But anyway, he asked me that. And the reason why he asked me that is he said I like just my demeanor and how I present myself and how kind and nice I was, and I didn't walk in here. And here's the thing with some, like, I had noticed like a lot of foreigners, you know, Africans, Haitians, or whomever, even some Black Americans actually. But anyway, there's always this Tariq Nasheed would hate this, huh? But he said you came in here and you wasn't like, I need help, da, 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 da. Like he was saying how I didn't have an attitude and I wasn't basically ghetto and like I didn't have this like nasty attitude. And I'm like, yeah, because what the fuck? Like what? But why would I? Like, but why does that even make sense? And he said, you know, well, I didn't say that part, but he just basically said how he dealt a lot with customers who are Black Americans who would have attitudes and they will walk in very just rude and have a nasty way about themselves. And it's like, okay, I think he's, you know, he's giving me a compliment, but it's like, dang, you know, you ain't got to shit on Black Americans like that all the time. But I mean, I'm gonna fuck. I ain't Black, so I'm good. I'm racist. No, but I would do that sometimes. I remember in college, I would say, like, I'm not Black, I'm Haitian. I'm not Black, I'm Haitian, right? But I would do it kind of petty because I was trying to get in the skin of someone who was, like, she was just Black American. Like, she didn't have, not that she didn't have culture, but she didn't have, like, you know, like an ethnic background like myself. So it was funny to say, oh, I could, like, dabble in Black and I could dabble in Haitian. Like, I'm Haitian or I'm Black American, right? So it's just funny. Anyway, so he said that. He's like, so either you go to church or you are, like, you're not Black American. And I'm like, oh, that's actually both. Or I haven't been to church in a long time, but, like, that's actually both. So I said, yeah, my parents are from Haiti, and I grew up in the church, and I'm like, yeah, they basically raised me right. And I, you know, yes, he had a funny way of, like, complimenting me. and all of that. But that struck me. It struck me in a positive way because I had to, like, I realized in that moment, my parents raised me right. And I know they weren't perfect. I know they had their flaws. And I know that in my childhood, I had maladaptive daydreaming probably because of some things that I did. And, you know, like I shared earlier, I created characters in my mind and I drew a lot. And I was very much like into these like creative outlets to escape reality. And look, my parents were far from perfect. But what they did was raise me and my sister right. Like, they really raised us in church. They raised us, like, they rooted us in faith. They rooted us in God. And, you know, say what you want about the church. And look, I have said a lot about the church and I have said a lot about religion and all of that. But I think ultimately there are so many benefits from the church. There are so many advantages that I take away from the church to this day. I take away from my upbringing to this day. And that is just, I always go back to my faith. Like, that's always my foundation. That's my standing ground. That's my way of getting through, you know? And I realize more and more that not a lot of people have that. Like, not a lot of people grew up with parents like mine. Not a lot of people know the Bible like I may do, you know, like I do. Not a lot of people had that foundation, you know. Not a lot of people had parents, right? Like, not a lot of people, and I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying, like, there are people who had the absence of a parent. And it could have been both parents or one parent, but I just noticed a lot that in my adulthood, I receive a lot of people saying, like, you were raised differently. Like, it looked like you were raised right. Or it looked like, you know, you had both parents in your life. Or it looked like you were raised in the church. Or, like, there's certain mannerisms that I have and just way of being that I have that is different from someone who weren't raised in the same capacity as I was. I'm not saying it's like, you know, to toot my horn, but be. I'm not trying to come off like that. I know it probably does come off like that. But I think, though, anyway, I say all that to say, I decided to go back to what I know. I decided to go back to what has been working for me and what has been working for me for a long time, you know, growing up. And I think I've always, like, dealt with anxiety, like, when I was younger, but it never, actually, I don't know if it ever, like, handicapped me or made me feel like I couldn't go on type of thing. And, you know, things are much different now, years later. Like, society, the culture that we're living in is different. So I think all that plays into effect. But I feel like there is definitely some credit to be made to God, to the Bible, to prayer, to worship, and all of that has helped me so much in my upbringing. And having the absence of that in my adulthood for the past year or so, you know, considering, you know, the excuses that I would make, like, you know, I wouldn't go to church in person because I'm not trying to fucking wear a mask, or, you know, this pastor said some ignorant remarks about Haiti, and it's like, okay, I can go to another church, right? Anyway, I would make these excuses, and I realized in those moments, I thought I was trying to treat my anxiety to the best of my ability, but I was doing everything else but God. And so that moment with that AutoZone employee inspired me to look into finding a Haitian church to go to. And why a Haitian church, Maxine? Why not just go to another Black American church? You went to a Black American church before here, and why not just... I decided to go Haitian church because there's nothing like Haitian praise and worship. And again, I'm going back to what I know. I'm going back to what brought me up. And there's a connection there, right? You know, I have parents from Haiti, and growing up in a Haitian household, like, it connects me back home without necessarily having me to be back home in Boston, right? It's like a home away from home opportunity. So I decided, you know, let me look into finding a Haitian church here in Houston. So that's what I did. And I ended up going to their church service on their Sunday service this past Sunday. There was a little miscommunication hack or whatever that happened on Friday, because I was interested in going to their prayer service. Because with Haitian services, church services, their prayer service is oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Why is it amazing? It's amazing because with prayer service, like, you're really praying, right? Like, it's not just like very structured or like rigid. What I mean to say, yeah, rigid. It's not just very rigid. Okay, we only pray once or twice, and then we get into sermon, and then we stop the service. No. We're praying down. We're praying for deliverance. We're praying for peace. We're praying for protection, right? We have prayer requests. We have people go up to the front and share their testimonies, and like, we have those moments, and it's powerful, right? Because you're in community with people. There's this bond. You feel God in the room. The Holy Spirit is present. It's a beautiful time. So that's what I love about Haitian prayer services, Haitian church prayer services. And when I've gone to this Black American church, the one that I've gone to before, Lighthouse, their prayer service would feel very rigid. Like, it felt like a show. Even with their Sunday service, like, everything felt like a show. Like, it was like we were watching people praise and worship up on the altar while they do, you know, a phenomenal job singing and a phenomenal job, you know, how they pray. Like, they have a way of, like, wow, they could really sing. And like, I remember a couple of services, there were people who were brought in, like, actual, like, gospel artists, and people from other churches will come in and sing. And it was beautiful watching their gift, right, and their talent, but it just felt like a show. And in those moments, I'm like, damn, like, I miss going to a church service that was just genuinely about worshiping God together, and was genuinely about just like crying out to him and sharing these testimonies and sharing how God moved in their lives. And that church that I went to, Lighthouse, I've never seen anyone go up to the altar and be like, I'm here to share a testimony. Never. They never, like, they don't let people from the congregation talk, really. Like, it's actually kind of weird, come to think about it. They wouldn't let people in the congregation talk much. Like, you don't have an opportunity to go up and be like, or like be a part of the agenda for that day, the schedule for that day, to start going up there and sharing your testimony. Like, what? You don't hear. All the times I've gone to the Lighthouse Church service, I would never see, oh, the women's ministry are going up to sing. The men's ministry, the youth ministry, like, they never did that. All the times that I've gone, and I've gone to several services, I've never seen that. It was always a production. It was, I'm really thinking about it right now. Like, wow, that's crazy. It was always a production. The production was this show that the praise and worship team will put on, and then the pastor will come on and do his, like, Instagram worthy ass preach. And sure, of course, he'll reference the Bible, but he will go on these tangents about his personal life and these, like, metaphors and stuff. And it's like, but what does that have to do with Peter from 1 Peter 5 verse 7, right? What does that have to do with like, you know, and I think with these, and that, I guess that church is considered a mega church now. But I think with these mega churches, there's this, when you get bigger, unfortunately, there's this lack of desire to be genuine. There's this lack of desire to get back to the basics and get on your knees and pray. Get on your fucking knees and pray. You don't have that. But the Haitian church I went to just yesterday, or at this time of the recording, you got on your knees and prayed. You got on your knees and you worship God. That's what I grew up on. That's what I know. So it felt so refreshing. Oh my goodness. It felt so refreshing to go back to that. I instantly, I haven't been to a Haitian church service such a long time, but as soon as I went inside, it's like riding a bike, right? I just immediately picked it up. The songs that they sung, I haven't heard them in a minute, but I remember them. And everything was in Haitian Creole. So I was singing the song in Haitian Creole. I was worshiping in Haitian Creole. I was speaking to other people in Haitian Creole. It was a really good time. And who knows, I'm not trying to fucking save the church. I'm not, because it's an actually small church, or it's a community church, really. What I mean by that is it seems to be a family unit. The pastor was talking to me, and he's like, he would love to have me on as a member, and he wants to know what I could bring to the table, because he asked me, what church I came to, or what work did I do in the church before. And I said how I was the young adult ministry leader in my home church back in Boston, and I was in the praise and worship team. And he was like, oh, he would love it, basically, to bring these gifts and talents to this church. And it's like, okay, sir, this is my first service. Give me a second. let me become a member first. Just give me a second. But I'm gonna pray to God about that and see what he wants me to do, because I think that's a reason why I felt convicted to go, and that I went, and it was great and all these things. But we'll just give it time, because I'm not trying to save anybody or any church or all of that. Ugh. But what's funny, when I walked in, I was looking around and I was like, okay, this church has potential to grow. That, I immediately go into these ideas that I have, and just looking at the congregation and seeing the demographic, it just reminded me of my home church and all that I've done humbly. And I'm not saying that's too much, I'm really not, but I did a lot for my home church. I brought up the engagement level of the young adults at my home church, and that was missing a lot from my home church. And I'm so grateful that God gave me that opportunity. And I think, what if God is trying to tell me to do the same thing for this church? But I don't fucking know these people. Who knows? Again, I'll pray on it. I forgot to add that to my prayer this morning. But I'll pray on it and see what happens. But again, that was a really great time. I do plan to return, and I'll possibly go to some midweek services, like their Bible study or prayer service, or both. Who knows? But yeah, I had a great weekend. That was a great time. And I will always come on here and talk about how I'm doing it on my own, and I don't have anyone to lean on, type of thing. Or I don't have a spouse, right? I'm unmarried, and I don't have the flexibility or the comfort or the, what is that? The cushion net. I think that's what it's called. Whatever. But the safety net, that's what it is. The safety net of having a spouse who could hold me down, if I'm unemployed. And, all the bills are on me, yada, 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 yada. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm unmarried, right? And I'm taking care of myself, but I'm not on my own, right? I do have help. And I'm just so grateful for my parents. Like, seriously, like my parents are really thebomb.com. And I think I just didn't put a lot of focus on, I do have supportive parents. Like, I keep on thinking that I have to get it out of the mud. Like, what the fuck? I didn't grow up in the hood. I'm not trying to become a battle rapper. Like, I'm not, what are we talking about? But I still have to say, like, I have parents who care and love and will demonstrate that love in many ways. But at the very least, like, they're good parents. And for that, I'm so grateful. So I need to stop thinking that it's all on me and now I can understand. And I think it's also this, like, pressure that I put upon myself, to, like, have it all together. And once I have it all together, they'll be proud of me. And, they'll be happy for me and all these things. Like, oh, once I get my house, my parents will be proud of me and proud that I moved here to Houston. Or, I'll call my parents once I get a job secured. And it's like, no, like, talk to them throughout every moment. Like, they're here. Like, my mom has demonstrated so much of her support and love for me. And I'm just at a loss. Because I really, like, conjured up this idea in my mind that, yeah, they're my parents, but it's only, like, their love is limited type of thing. It's just weird. It's like, no, their love is limitless. Like, I'm so grateful that I have them as my parents, And I think also there's this, like, oh, when you're an adult, like, this, like, hardening that we have to take on as adults. Oh, you decided to live on your own and it's all on you now. It's like, no. Like, no, like, if you need help, you could ask for help, or you could receive the offer that is being given to you of help. Like, you can, and that's okay. That doesn't take away from your independence. It doesn't take away from your adulthood. It doesn't take away from your intelligence or your way of caring for yourself. Like, no, like, you are of a village. You are of a community. You come from a community. You didn't come out of wolves, right? You didn't birth yourself. You come from people who love you and who are your family. Lean on to that. Maxine, fuck. This episode is longer than I thought it would be. And I'm grateful that I covered these topics. There's more that I wanted to cover, but I'm having, like, a nose attack right now. It's so annoying. So I'm going to end the episode here, and I'll possibly share the other topics I had in mind on the next episode. All right, you guys. So again, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you are subscribed, and please make sure you have left me a positive review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. And make sure to tell a friend. Tell a friend about this podcast. Share it out loud. I'm Black and I'm proud. I'll check in with you guys next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.